At Africa's southern tip, South Africa's landscapes are as dramatic as its history, where ancient mountains meet two oceans and deserts yield to green valleys. This is not just a story of land, but of people of resilience, sorrow and hope. To understand South Africa, we must journey back millennia, to the earliest humans who left their mark on this soil. Their legacy is a deep sense of time, a foundation for the nation's identity. Over centuries, waves of migration, settlement and conquest shaped a complex tapestry of cultures. The struggle for control over gold, diamonds and fertile land has defined its destiny. This is no simple tale of heroes and villains, but a drama with consequences still felt today. Our journey begins not with European ships, but with the first artists and storytellers who called this land home. Their story is the essential first chapter in South Africa's epic, a land of ancient echoes that still resonate. On this day, July 3rd, 2025, we begin to unravel that story. For tens of thousands of years, the San people thrived here, nomadic hunter-gatherers, masters of survival, and creators of haunting rock art. Later, the Khoikhoi arrived, herding cattle and sheep, forming larger, settled communities along rivers and coasts. The San and Khoikhoi, together known as Khoisan, shared the land, sometimes peacefully, sometimes in conflict. Their cultures were rich in tradition, their languages marked by unique click consonants among the world's oldest. For millennia, their way of life endured, shaped by the rhythm of nature. About 2,000 years ago, Bantu-speaking peoples migrated south, bringing ironworking, agriculture, and new social structures. These newcomers cultivated crops, built permanent settlements, and transformed the human landscape. The arrival of the Bantu marked a turning point, setting the stage for centuries of cultural exchange and competition. The region's diversity was now firmly established, a mosaic of peoples, languages, and traditions. This foundation would shape all that followed in South Africa's story. In 1652, the Dutch East India Company established a small outpost at the Cape of Good Hope, a refreshment station for ships, not a colony, or so they thought. Jan van Riebeeck led the settlement, trading with the Khoikhoi for cattle, but misunderstandings soon led to conflict. The Dutch concept of private land clashed with Khoikhoi communal traditions, and as settlers expanded, indigenous people were pushed aside. Disease, displacement, and violence shattered Khoikhoi and San societies. The Dutch, joined by French Huguenots, became known as Boers, developing their own culture and the Afrikaans language. Expansion came at a terrible cost. The San were driven into deserts, the Khoikhoi into servitude. The small outpost grew into a colony, planting the seeds of a society divided by race and conflict. The arrival of Europeans marked the beginning of centuries of dispossession for South Africa's first peoples. The land's destiny was forever altered. By the late 1700s, Britain seized the Cape, seeking control of the sea route to India. British rule brought new laws and the abolition of slavery, angering Boer farmers and fueling the Great Trek, a mass migration inland. The Boers, or Voortrekkers, clashed with powerful African kingdoms, especially the Zulu, led by the formidable Shaka. The Battle of Blood River became a mythic victory for the Boers, fueling Afrikaner nationalism. The British too fought African kingdoms, suffering defeat at Isandlwana before ultimately conquering the Zulu. The region became a battleground of empires, British, Boer and African, each vying for control. These conflicts set the stage for a final struggle, not just between black and white, but between British and Boer. The land's fate would soon be decided in a contest for its immense wealth. South Africa's divisions deepened, shaping its future. The discovery of diamonds and gold in the late 1800s transformed South Africa into a global mining powerhouse and a battleground. British and Boer tensions erupted into two brutal wars. The second saw scorched earth tactics and concentration camps, leaving deep scars. Black Africans too suffered in camps, their tragedy often overlooked. In 1910, the British unified the colonies into the Union of South Africa, a union for whites only, excluding the black majority from power. The foundations of institutionalized segregation were laid, setting the stage for apartheid. The promise of unity was hollow for most South Africans. The wounds of war and exclusion fueled Afrikaner nationalism and deepened racial divides. The new nation was built on inequality, its future shaped by the legacy of conquest and division. The seeds of resistance and struggle were sown. South Africa's story was far from over. In 1948, apartheid became law, a system of racial separation and white supremacy enforced with ruthless precision. Every South African was classified by race, determining where they could live, work, and whom they could marry. The Group Areas Act destroyed vibrant communities, forcing millions into segregated, impoverished townships and bantustans. Petty apartheid meant separate benches, schools and hospitals, always inferior for non-whites. Grand apartheid aimed to strip black South Africans of citizenship, confining them to barren homelands. Families were torn apart, opportunities denied, and communities shattered. The police enforced apartheid with violence, detention and torture. Apartheid was not just unjust laws, it was a systematic assault on human dignity. The world watched as South Africa became a symbol of institutionalized racism. But resistance was growing, both at home and abroad. Resistance to apartheid was fierce and unyielding. The African National Congress, founded in 1912, led the struggle, first with peaceful protest, then, after the Sharpeville massacre, with armed resistance. Nelson Mandela emerged as a key leader, forming the ANC's armed wing and enduring 27 years in prison for his ideals. The world took notice. Sanctions, boycotts and global outrage isolated the apartheid regime. Inside South Africa, new leaders like Steve Biko inspired a generation. And the 1976 Soweto uprising reignited the fight. The apartheid state responded with violence, but could not crush the movement. Mandela became a global symbol of hope and defiance. The struggle united people across races, demanding freedom and equality. By the 1980s, the system was crumbling under pressure. The long walk to freedom was nearing its destination. By the late 1980s, South Africa was at a breaking point, racked by unrest, crippled by sanctions, and isolated. President F.W. de Klerk unbanned the ANC in 1990. Days later, Nelson Mandela walked free, signaling a new era. Negotiations were tense, violence threatened to derail progress, but Mandela and de Klerk steered the nation toward peace. In 1994, for the first time, all South Africans voted in democratic elections. Mandela became president, calling for a rainbow nation united in diversity, committed to reconciliation. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, led by Desmond Tutu, confronted the horrors of the past, seeking healing through truth. The process was painful and imperfect, but vital for building a shared future. The new constitution enshrined human rights and equality. The world celebrated South Africa's peaceful transition. The challenge now was to turn hope into reality. The legacy of apartheid would not vanish overnight, but a new chapter had begun. Today, South Africa is a vibrant democracy with a free press and a constitution celebrated worldwide. The legal shackles of apartheid are gone, but its economic legacy remains. Inequality, poverty, and unemployment persist. The promises of freedom are not yet fully realized for millions. Crime, corruption, and service delivery challenges test the nation's resolve, yet the spirit of resilience endures. The born-free generation carries the hopes of a more just, inclusive future. South Africa's story is a lesson for the world. Even entrenched injustice can be overcome. Reconciliation is possible, but freedom is a journey, not a destination. The nation's greatest strength is its people, their diversity, courage and hope. The story is still being written, and the world watches as South Africa continues its unfinished journey. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of South Africa's past and present.